Ghana Center for Democratic Development, CDD Ghana. Senor Kwesi Hosi is CEO, Ghana Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors. And he, and a fellow farmer. Fellow farmer, that's right. Yeah, that's right. So that's a different story. I was a Kwafo Hall president. I handed over to him. And my time, he wanted to prosecute me. Anyway, that's what the
and now you're doing my prosecutions for me.
Yeah, right. We had also Dr. Anthony Insian-Sari, Presidential Advisor on Health. He's left us. Now let's look at the fuel issues. And Dr. Theo Echampong, economist and political risk analyst, joins us as well. Thank you, Doc, for joining us.
Good morning.
Great. Now, let me share some of your views. Dr. Charles Frekubrobe Tarzan says, Newsfile, vaccine mandates will only come in after Bronya has been chopped. Ghana is indeed sweet. So by now, we should have gotten all of these things ready. Let's hope that the presidential advisor was not only speaking prophecies to us. This one from Kojo Prince, Prince. He says, Newsfile, many countries are looking at taking their 4th and 5th booster shots. So why force people to take vaccines that will soon expire? Then Kofi, is it Kofi 80? It says, Newsfile, I'm at Spinktest and I'm due for my 2nd jab. Please, Samson, can you ask the nearest location I can go to for my jab? Where did you take the first? Go back to that same place. That's the instruction. Otherwise, go to the nearest place and ask them what help they can offer you. Prince Henry Koforidia says that the government must make sure each and every health facility across the country is having COVID-19 vaccines for effective dissemination. That's what Dr. Nsian-Sari says. It's sad you travel to some parts in Ghana and some of these people are not even aware of the negative effects of COVID-19. Nana Poku says, it's time to embark on massive orientation of the Omicron variant. I see the same approach we did in December 2019 and 2020, and government will come back in January and start reactive approach. Let's not be pessimistic. Let's try and be optimistic a bit. When you are suffering from the symptoms of COVID and at worst die, it be only you will be going through that alone, not the government. So let's all help and win over this pandemic. Don't be unfortunate to be a case count of COVID-19. Max up and get vaccinated. You are right. Jack Rachel says the European solution is not always the right solution. They are on their 4th booster shot, and yet their numbers, percentages are still far worse than ours. Let's not take things for granted. I don't see the need for rush mandatory vaccinations over here in Ghana. Ilyasu in Tamale says that I entreat all and sundry to go in for COVID vaccines. I was very educated on the vaccines. That has really allayed my fears. I shall gladly go for my vaccine, God willing, Monday. Meanwhile, vaccines must be administered compulsorily on all citizens. And finally, Akosia Sampong says that, is it Isampong? Says that, truth be told, we have all relaxed on issues concerning COVID-19. Apart from some, the big malls and some banks who insist on the no mask, no entry policy, mask wearing and hand washing is mostly non-existent. You're right about that. You even get strange looks when you have your mask on these days. Thank you very much. I've got lots of your messages on my take, and sometimes it happens when I do my take, I get loads of messages like that, but I don't discuss my take, so I don't read messages on my take. I was, however, excited that my takes was one of the reasons I was nominated for the Integrity Award. And my defense of journalists who are doing corruption investigations. Thank you very much. Now, as you know, something has happened this week, and commercial drivers gave us an idea of the power they wield in this country. Take a look at this briefly and listen to this. We'll be right back to talk about whether there has been a solution or people were called to the presidency and simply promised that Goil will reduce fuel prices, and Goil has done that by 15 pesos, and so we have resolved the matter permanently.
Oh, you? Okay.
I want to tell them that they should come and take us early. I want to sleep.
You want to sleep?
Yes, so that tomorrow I can go to school early.
Okay, because you've been waiting here for how many hours? Your brother said 1 hour.
Yes, I am tired so much. So I want the drivers to come so that I want to go home so that I rest more.
Okay, thank you. I pray that a vehicle will come and pick you home soon, okay?
Yes.
Okay.
I want the government to reduce the fuel so that the drivers can come and pick us so that we can go home and rest.
Okay. So
UPSA.
You're heading towards UPSA. How do you feel about this? You've been asked to disembark from the vehicle that's going to take you there.
Well, I need to get to school, and it's bad that I can't get there, and I don't feel okay.
So now, what's going to be your alternative?
Pardon me?
What's going to be your alternative?
I don't know. I think I'll pick a taxi.
Okay. How are you going to get to work today?
Actually, I've been stranded over here and I don't know what to do. Looking at the situation over here.
Were you one of the people inside the car that were asked to get down?
Yes, please.
How does that make you feel that even the few that will work, their colleagues said they shouldn't work?
It baffles and it saddens a lot. Looking at the situation over here, and it's cut across, not here per se, because
it's also because if you have more higher price, nobody will patronize your products. So after lengthy discussions, this is what we arrive at. And
this directive to Goil now to reduce is a fair thing. It's a fair, sensible thing to do in reaction to the transport operators.
Well, I don't think it should have been a directive. Well, that's why I'm saying that I have never seen sense in what Goil does.
Yeah.
They shouldn't take the government to direct Goil to do that. Goil should have done this
by themselves. By themselves.
A Ghanaian company.
I mean, but let me ask you this though. But let me ask you from what let me ask you. But from what we're hearing from the government is now going to make sure government is stepping in to get them to do that. Does government have that say in terms of directing Goil for the purposes of pricing to reduce? Just clarify for me.
Government is the 60% shareholder of Goil.
Okay.
Me and you are 60% shareholder of Goil. So when Goil makes money, they give dividends to their shareholders. Mm-hmm. Now, because they have a 40% listing, where there are other companies that
directive to Goil or any company for that matter to review their prices.
Okay. So
what transpired at the meeting was this, in brief, that indeed if you look, and I'm on the internet now, you can see that as of 21st November, price of crude has risen as high as $85 per barrel. As of today, it has dropped to $75 per barrel.
All right, thank you very much. So you have followed and you've seen the pictures, the scenes, signs and sounds and sights in the course of the week. Some of them have been very, very devastating. It's been refreshing to hear that that man that Joy Online captured in the photograph carrying his daughter and walking to school is receiving support from some people. He's actually getting some car so that he can continue to, take the daughter to school without any challenges. So, Senor, the call from the drivers was simple. The Coalition of Private Transport Associations have been asking for the scrapping of the energy sector levy, sanitation and pollution levy, energy debt recovery levy, road fund levy, and then special petroleum levy. You say what? We know that the energy sector recovery levy per liter, if I'm buying fuel, is 20 pesos. That's on it. Sanitation and pollution levy is 10 pesewas. Energy debt recovery levy is 49 pesewas. Road fund levy is 48 pesewas. Special petroleum levy is 46 pesewas. And yeah, so what do you say? What should happen? The percentage decrease after scrapping of these will see fuel prices decrease by 25.44%. That certainly is not going to happen, apart from what we have seen Goil do.
Wait, what's the question?
In the course of this year, fuel prices have gone up to about 30-something. I'll check the figures again. I have the figures. And so people have genuine concerns, don't they?
Absolutely. And prices of petroleum would really are likely going to look head north, for two reasons. Mainly the international market and what's happening. There's always this talk about the energy transition. So those who have oil today would have to optimize their margins on it. So OPEC is not really dancing along efforts to try and have it boost its supply to suppress international price. When nobody wants to take crude anymore, the question is, what would they spend on? So they are milking now, and that's a natural market situation any day. And Ghana benefits from that.
So I was talking about the astronomical, rise of the hikes by between January and December this year, 39.92%. And this appeal that the GPRTU, private transports, and the coalition are making is to see a reduction by 25.44%.
It's not a viable proposition any day. Government's need for revenue has become very insatiable. You just need to look at the budget. If we were not in a very dire situation, government will not be suggesting an e-levy when it is supposed to be in the forefront of digitizing our economy. So it's a signal enough. We've seen all the reviews about the economic situation from the IMF, from the rating agencies. It's not rocket science. We don't have a great fiscal situation. Yes, the managers of the economy will have to take responsibility for it. But the economy they manage is still our economy. So we also have to be practical about what we can have done and not done. The energy debt recovery levy is a levy that has already been allocated for the issuance of the ESDA or energy bonds. It's committed. You can't do anything about it. The SPT is a very big feature of our revenue. It gives billions of cedis, which still seems not to boost the entire pot of tax revenue in the country. Our sector accounts for about 12 to 14%, depending on which year, of the total domestic revenue. That's what government takes out of the petroleum sector. But there are things that can be done, all right? What has been suggested that's been done is not a very sustainable proposition. But we'll deal with that later. Let me look at things that directly can be done today. One is our FX. The Bank of Ghana has been working hard at trying to stabilize our exchange rate. The problem you have today is that its interventions are not directly coordinated for oil to help suppress the price of oil. Today, those pricing petrol will be pricing petrol with an FX rate of around 6.6 or 6.5. But the Bank of Ghana releases FX to the country from time to time at a rate of about 5.9 thereabout. If government takes a policy position that oil has a cascading impact on all products and the general economic life, so Bank of Ghana dedicates your FX supply to the oil sector, will be able to reduce petroleum prices from the 6.7 today to about 6.2. That's a very significant reduction. All right, that is an immediate move. The other thing that I've suggested is for us to relook our taxes and see how we optimize it. I'm concerned sometimes that we're not putting in the right effort in rationalizing our tax and then our regulatory margin structure, which totals 2 cedis to 27 pesos on every liter that you buy today. 1 CD, 74 pesos thereabout, is what goes to the taxman, and then the rest goes to, we call it regulatory margins, which are coordinated by the National Petroleum Authority and some government agencies. There are a number of things there that shouldn't be there. I've spoken about the boss margin, so I don't need to belabor that point. It makes no sense. You can't actually be double dipping on the citizens with that one. Our transportation margins are overpriced. I've recommended that we should auction our transportation. If government still wants to regulate the transportation cost, then let's auction it. When you auction it, you see how much that will crash, because there are a lot more trucks in this country than the country requires. But the rates rather keep going up. Who has seen that? When you have a state of oversupply, you have supply outweighing demand, prices really go up. That's at variance with any economics that I have studied as an economic policy analyst. All right, so there are things that can be done to significantly reduce our prices. But that's a decision government has to make. We can easily get our prices back to below 6 or just at 6 if we want to. But these are decisions government has to take. Now, on the action that was referred to by the transport people, I found it very unfortunate. You know, I hope it's a miscommunication between the transporters and the government officials that they engage. Government is a shareholder of a company. And I think this government, being a private sector and supposed to be a business-oriented company entity, should be a lot more educated about the practices of corporate governance. And I think that they are very much aware. Shareholders are the business entity concept are different from the entity itself and its management and its decisions. Government is not the sole shareholder of Goil. So to take a decision to reduce prices should be a decision that Goil has to take. We've seen Goil say that they took the decision, but communicating it the way it was communicated leaves very, very sad taste for the optics. And for some of us who are minority shareholders, my question is that you're losing 9 million cedis a month. That's if what we saw, the report is right. You're going to be losing 9 million cedis a month. How are we compensating for it? Is it that Goil was overpricing for them to really have to reduce by 15 pesos? Then what was the NPA doing? Because the NPA is supposed to be monitoring all the prices to make sure that people are pricing fairly and not abusing the consumer. So if that too was being done, then what has really gone wrong? Where and what is going funny? The other side is that any time, and I want to believe that government is not really influencing this, but if it is in any shape or form, that is another recipe for major disruption and disaster. The major problem this industry faces today is the illegal trade. Government is losing about 5.3 billion Ghana cedis between 2016 and 2020. 2016 and 2020 from the illegal business. How did we get to the illegal business? We had government just in 2016 trying to also influence the prices for a particular company by running covert subsidies through another government agency, which ran losses, and that was bust. So when bust in 2016, after the previous government, they left a debt of $624 million. Because government was using them to subsidize the price for one entity. Now you have one entity out of 100 and something entities. The others have to compete, and you're a major player. So to survive, they started doing the illegal business. So it's government's own actions that actually fed or inspired this illegality that now we actually have political activists participating in, and now it has become an endemic situation. So sometimes we must be thorough about our solutions, very practical and sustainable about our solutions. So if this is being done as a directive, I would advise that we take the right decisions. If it's not a directive, then Goil and the NPA should possibly improve its monitoring to see, are consumers being abused by the market? Because since Goil reduced, a lot of OMCs have not necessarily reduced their prices. You understand? So
is there a lot or all of them?
Well, I don't have
know
a full
any
data.
that have also
not
reduced?
yet. I actually sent put a question somewhere to see if anything changed this morning, but as yesterday.
Former GMPC CEO Alex Mode says that whilst government has reduced the price stabilization levy, he believes that Ghanaians are being taxed too much when it comes to, these fuel things as well. So he says that, I quote, "The question is, are we being taxed too much?" And the answer is yes. "I know that government has reduced the price stabilization levy, which was 16 pesos since November, but we still have a special tax of 46 pesos, which is still lingering on the price build-up." So he says the special petroleum tax must be removed.
There is a very sound case that can be debated for the SPT to be removed, but it's not a practical proposition. It is a legitimate argument because what really inspired the SPT is no more in force. The reverse is rather true, so you should really be taken off the SPT. But government is now heavily dependent on that income. It has no alternative for the gap that an SPT will create. So that is the economic situation government finds itself.
The sanitation and pollution levy, when did we bring it
We
in?
brought it this year. I'll tell you a few things.
You see, that's 10
the Energy Sector Levies Act is a result of work that was really done by myself.
Energy sector recovery is 20 pesos.
So the energy sector levies is new. Energy sector is not the energy debt recovery levy. That's
debt recovery is 49 pesos.
So we advocated for some of that together with the Banking Association because we needed to cure a lot of the debt situation we had created. And the decision and the plan was for us to have this problem terminated once and for all.
So what's the difference? Energy sector recovery levy, then energy debt recovery levy. What's the difference?
So the energy debt recovery levy is really the legacy levy, which was originally part of the ESLA when it was passed, meant to deal with the power sector and the energy and the petroleum sector debts, legacy debts at the time. That's why this was actually a structure to cure the legacy problem and for us not to have it going forward. What happened is that with the new government coming in, yes, the energy debt recovery levy ended up being what's the proceeds for the energy bond. It was part of the design that we had built up. Myself, Frank Edu, Ediefa, Abiola, and a great set of team, including the current Stambik MD and a number of people. We built that conceptual structure. What we had next, energy bonds are issued, but we were not taking responsible decisions in the power sector. You do not, when you go into your house and in your bathroom, you see that your bathtub, the whole place is flooded. The first thing you do is not to take a spoon to try and get water out. What you do is you close the tap. So the decision we are taking then, or the policy proposition, was that we're closing the tap with the energy bond. But what we did was close one tap and we opened a new tap. Now, a new tap is new kinds of debt because there's underperformance at ECG. Power agreements were wrongly being terminated other than negotiated in some sense. All kinds of decisions were being taken that created a whole new set of debt. Today, as we speak, $500 million, all right, is something we're losing.
Why should we be paying for the inefficiencies of our leaders? I don't get it. So, and some of these levies are intended to be temporary. Is that not so?
The SPT was, but the SPT was. The energy debt recovery levy too was. The energy sector levy is new. Now, sanitation is another inefficient levy. Because why do you tax petrol for boiler? The problem is that government has over the time seen that it is only it is easier to tax the people with petroleum than with other things. Deploying it is...
The petroleum affects everything. It affects my ball of kenke.
It does. It does. That's why I'm saying that for you take the FX, the Bank of Ghana must focus.
No, but it's crazy. Let me hear Dr. Tio Champong, and I'll come to Kwame because he has very interesting views and comparative, analysis to make because he just came down, but Doc, Tio, I don't understand something. I just don't understand it. And forgive me if, some would say this is populist and you are saying these things too often. Why can I be paying for the inefficiencies of our leaders? And the politicians come to power all the time. They appoint people who know jack about the sector and they put them there. They are simply there because they have a party card. And they continue to pile up debts and we continue to pay. They don't feel anything. And they live luxurious lives like Arabian kings.
Wow.
It's interesting. Look, we're not holding them to account enough. That's just the simple response I would give. There are so many inefficiencies within the Ghanaian economy and even within the government sector, of which the petroleum sector is just like a microcosm. So if you do recall, just 2 months ago, we were on this very platform to discuss the same issue.
That's right.
And Senna and I spent, quite considerable time to actually break down the pricing structure of petroleum. And what Senna is saying, really, there are 3 things that go into the pricing mix. Where or how you buy the product, which the government does not control, that's set by the international market. Then the exchange rate, which sometimes government controls, but other times is determined by the market. So that's the second factor. And then the third factor being the taxes and the margins that are, imposed on this product, which is fully within the remit of government in terms of control. So when you take these 3 things and you begin to now break them down, you ask yourself, where or how can you then reduce the potential levies and the taxes that are imposed on government? You begin to see that there's scope in 2 of the areas. The first one, which Senya has actually spoken quite a lot about on the FX regime, and I fully support and I've advocated for that for the last 3-4 years, that perhaps it's actually time that the Bank of Ghana, together with some of the other market, may consider auctioning or conducting special auctions for FX to the OMCs and then the bulk distribution companies. Because if they are able to get a relatively special rate, which is slightly different from the market going rate, overnight, you would actually see prices coming down. So that's one. And then the second element of it, which actually has to do with the actual taxes or the levies and the margins, is where I think a lot of debate needs to be had. As we speak currently, I could actually count about 12 separate margins and levies. 6 of them are margins, 6 of them are levies, and then you have even 1 or so tax on it. Together, cumulatively, it's about 43% of the price mix. And when you split them, the levies alone account for about 1 CD 73 or 1 CD 70 pesos thereabout, right, of the 43% mix. And you begin to break them down and you begin to realize that there are a number of things that are in there that should not be there. But because the government is in a very tight corner in terms of the finances of the country, unfortunately, it's become extremely difficult to scrap them. So, for example, we were just talking recently about the price stabilization and recovery levy.
Right.
We were talking about the energy sector recovery levy, the special petroleum tax, which was actually meant to be a one-off tax, but has actually become a mainstay of a number of the taxes that are collected in the sector. I think we need to have an honest conversation, and we need to come back to the table and find the basis from, in my view, or the rationale for imposing some of these levies. I don't think they are sustainable. In my view, the special petroleum tax could actually be dealt away with. I've advocated for this for a very long time.
Okay.
I also think that the energy debt recovery levy, and then you also have the energy sector recovery levy, both of them can actually be merged together, perhaps into one levy. But the problem, as
the two similar things, they give us about 40, is it 49?
It's 49 pesos.
Yes, 49
plus
pesos.
Another 20 pesos. So that's 69, almost 70 pesos, which is quite a big chunk.
So if there's a merger, what are you thinking? How much thereabout?
At the moment, I don't have any specifics.
Okay.
But the rationale for the imposition of these 2 levies is pretty much similar.
Okay.
And the idea was that you want to actually deal with the historic indebtedness in the sector. Nevertheless, we're still incurring more of these debts. So what I'm saying is that we need to go back to the table to actually do two things. One, why are we still incurring those debts? And number two, are these monies which we're collecting enough to actually plug those loopholes? Those conversations need to be had. The third thing I also think is the sanitation and pollution levy. For want of a better word, I could never imagine why we would even impose such a levy on petrol prices in the first instance. And when the finance minister actually came to Parliament to read the 2022 budget, I did not see in any of the budget lines how much is actually being collected from this levy a year or so, or some months down the line. So definitely there's a lot of conversation that needs to be had on the margins and the tax structure, because it's a big chunk.
Right.
The government is in a very difficult position. I still think that a lot can be done to reduce the margins and the levies, but we need to have a national conversation on it. And then secondly, the big conversation also about the FX auctioning and giving the importers some special rates on the foreign exchange.
So calling the drivers, striking drivers, their leaders into the Jubilee House and giving them the assurances that translated into the 15 pesos reduction by Goil. Well, Goil has issued a statement and is denying that it was ever asked to do that. I don't know whether they take us for dummies. What do you say?
Look, I'm a bit worried I was a bit worried when I actually read the Goil statement, but also the statement that came from the Association of Oil Marketers, because in one sense, Goil is a big player in this space. And the whole ethos of the deregulation regime is not to have government basically attempt to interfere in the market. And then what you then tend to do really with some of these moves is that you give undue advantage to some of the incumbent players, in this case, probably Goil or whoever for that matter. So my concern really is this going to be a one-off? And if so, how sustainable would this, reaction really be? It comes across to me that it's a bit more knee-jerk rather than something that has been fully thought through, and the implications of that on the market structure and the market-making mechanism, are fully evaluated. And this is a problem with many of the policy decisions in this country. I've said this time and I've learned that often we tend to make knee-jerk policy reactions. We don't evaluate the full extent of the impact and how this even distorts or would affect the market pricing structure in this case. If I am a shareholder of Goil, I'll be worried now, because it comes across to me, I'll be asking myself, this is potentially my dividend that the government is using, right, to offset or to reduce or to mitigate the prices on the market. And Goil is not fully owned by the state. The state has about 60% or so share with other entities, but there is an element of it that is also listed on the market. And so my expectation or in the communication would have been that, one, the decision would have been taken maybe by the management. That's the first thing. And then secondly, it would have been communicated. But the way it was communicated looked as though it was the hand of government that was like forcing them to make that decision. Nevertheless, there has been some clarifications to that effect. My big point or the concern that I highlighted earlier is the fact that I think this is an unsustainable decision. If it's just a one-off, perhaps we can let it slide. But if we see constant attempts, like that, then surely it's actually going to distort the market and give Goil an undue advantage. And that, basically unravels the whole deregulation policy or regime that we've had in place.
But flip the other way, if Goil can reduce by 15 pesos and still stay profitable and survive, then it means that the OMCs, they have been cheating us. And this is good, isn't it? Yeah,
no,
you come in. You come in.
I don't think that is the case. The OMCs and their margins are set by the NPA. So the question really is, are the margins that they're setting commensurate with the return or the service that the OMCs and the BDCs are providing to the Ghanaian populace? That's a legitimate conversation that we can have. But I also am worried in the sense that if you have a state entity basically coming in and interjecting and trying to distort the market mechanism, the question is, for how long can they actually do this, right? Because gold cannot continue. So every time that prices kind of go up, are we then going to say that gold will come in and reduce their margin? That cannot be done sustainably, in my view, even over 3 months, because that's going to eat into their profits and it's going to eat into the dividends that they would have to declare to shareholders at the end of the financial year.
All right. Now, I'll come again. Now, Seyon.
Yeah.
So this joke, we should take it as a joke on social media that very soon we should expect Goil recovery levy.
I mean, that won't happen. Goil recovery levy won't happen.
Right. But what do you say, because you work with this industry, what do you say about the fact that if Goil can do this and stay profitable, then we have been, as it were, cheated. You guys have been making. What I said earlier. You guys have been making supernormal profits.
That's what I said earlier.
Along
that if Goil is able to reduce that and it's profitable, there are questions to ask. I mean, is MP effectively monitoring the prices to make sure that the prices at the pump are fair to consumers? All right. So somebody has a question to answer in this whole mix. If Goil is taking a big hit, ill-informed, and I saw their statement, and I would advise the management of Goil to be quite moderate and patient when they have to deal with issues in the public. I mean, it's not optimal for investors, neither is it even optimal for them. You don't run a business that has pensioners' funds in there where you have a responsibility to optimize their return so that when they go back, they can have something meaningful, and tell them that you're not using their money to actually make, your primary motive is not to make returns. Then why are you there? Get out of the place and go and work in a not-for-profit entity. So please, they should just be careful. Sometimes, I mean, that's my humble advice. I mean, they are also good friends. And
those who attended that meeting in the Jubilee House, they came out and they said that this is what has been agreed. So when I saw that statement, I felt this is very insulting. Really,
I really relate to your concerns. But whatever it is, we are where we are. My take here is that MP has a question to answer. Is it a fair price? Is it a reasonable price? Are there people selling below the 6.7? Yes. All right, but these are people that MP every day is querying to see whether there are illegal activities in there. So it's important we really have a fair idea of what's reasonable as consumers.
Okay.
And then what is not reasonable. And if Goil is taking this decision, it should take that decision based on pure economics, and we should see that reflect in their productivity.
What's your view that this is sustainable for them?
It's not sustainable. What may happen, and from my experience from the previous government and how they've handled some of these things, is that you'll find government finding other clandestine ways to really provide Goil with some kind of subsidy. For example, they can decide that Goil, because Goil also has a BDC, which is a member of my chamber, very, very responsible BDC, very professional BDC, Go Energy. They can decide that Go Energy, we are going to make sure that the auctions and the FX supply that we give you, you can get it directly from the Bank of Ghana at 5.9. Instead of what the general market gets at 6.5. That again goes into market manipulation and creates the instability that will facilitate illegality. All right, so
but that also feeds, what you just said also feeds into the claim by some of you, the experts in the public there, that say that the FX that the Bank of Ghana has been talking about is fictitious.
It's not that it's fictitious. It's a marketplace. Somebody has CDs, somebody has dollars. I'm willing to buy your CDs at this price. If you really are okay with it, you take it. It's a marketplace. The only thing is that we need to have a more active
Alex Moore says they have been lying to us about what the rates are.
I mean, I think that there's another rate that should rather be what is published. That is more the interbank rate than the interbank rate we see with the central bank. But there's been times that they've tried to close the gap between the general market and that. And I think that they are onto something. And I'm pretty sure that together the IMF and some things that are going on, some of these things will be rationalized. But government is in a position to use FX as a vehicle to help reduce prices ahead of taxes. But the taxes come, and there's one thing I was going to recommend. I've said it's now the SPT. Now the SPT, we brought it in because we had a major crash in the oil prices.
That's the special petroleum levy.
The tax, yes, tax. SPT, yeah. Now the reverse is true. What we could also do, prices are not really going to go down that much unless there's a major crisis. Omicron just got it down for a while, it's going back up now. All right, I don't know which new crisis is going to come, so we need to plan. My suggestion to government will always be on this is that let's really have a set price. Maybe your budget price that you actually have for petroleum. And let's use that and have a clearinghouse. When prices go beyond that, reduce your SPT because you're getting the income on the upstream side. So you reduce the SPT for Ghanaians to also get a little cushion. When it goes below, you can keep you go back to the SPT as you had actually set. But it's really going to be on the upside. So you find a way to compensate the upstream, the downstream taxes with the upstream revenue from the increasing petroleum prices. We need to be seen to be doing something so consumers can come along with that. But a long-term solution to these things is for us to invest properly in our mass transportation systems.
Okay.
We have lost 5-point-something billion in tax
revenue. So obviously it doesn't look like this will end the strike that came up because as we know, they were asking for close to 26 percentage points of a reduction, and they were looking at the ex-pump, right?
Yeah.
The levies. That's what has made all the price to this point. Otherwise, if it's the actual cost, we'll be paying very little for petrol, for fuel. And in the course of January to December, we've witnessed an astronomical rise of almost 40% in fuel prices. Yes, what do you say?
It's interesting listening to both Theo and Senor on this because they are technicians in the area. I look at this strictly from, I park my car, I fill it up.
Right.
I'm a very practical person when it comes to things like this. So yesterday, I had to go briefly to Kumasi to go and see my dad and come back. And I said, you know what, I need to get this car filled. So we just went to the filling station. It had a quarter tank in the car. Filled the tank, 495 Ghana cedis. So I looked at it, and being a nomad, automatically I converted that into pounds to see what the hell is going on here. And I realized that, okay, take it or leave it, I pay about the same thing.
Exactly, I was going to say you pay more, actually.
No, it's about the same, because I did the conversion on a weekly basis to fill my car.
Because you have
that's for a week?
Yes.
Yeah. That's for a week when you're in the UK?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Then I sat down and I said, okay, what's my wage? What's the median wage in the UK? Because my wage may be a bit on the other side of the median. Then I looked at it and I said, when it comes to fuel, irrespective of your wage, you pay the same export price.
Absolutely.
Right? So, this 495, one, if the median wage for Ghana is about 1,900 a month, let's say that would last 2 weeks for that person if they fill their car because they might have a small capacity, or even 3 weeks.
That's right.
They are paying over 25% of their monthly earnings, for those in the median I'm talking about, as cost of fuel. If you do the same calculation for the UK, you get single digits for the people earning the median wage. So you then ask yourself, how are we living to pay 25%? And the same applies. When I was speaking to the driver,
the Ghanaian worker is a magician.
The driver I was with, he was saying if you do the same calculation for the people taking the trotters and all that, because some of them are earning something like 400, 500 cedis a month, they are paying the same thing. So it's not like People would make the argument it's because of the size of your car or the car you drive and blah, blah. No, it tears down across the society. So I can say that is not feasible. Paying 25% of your wages just to fill your car, it's not come to the maintenance and all that, it's not come to what you live, it's not come to your rent, it's not come to your electricity. It's not feasible. Solution we get, manipulate the market. I'm not saying government manipulate the market for obvious reasons, because the people who went for the meeting are saying this was what happened. Goil is saying that is not what happened. But one thing...
It's quite interesting that the people say it the day before Goil
but one thing we know is it went down by 15 pesos.
Right.
Yeah. So whatever it is, there was a change in the price.
That's right.
If you act in such a way, is it even legal? Whoever did it. You see, sometimes, and that's why I always like to be a pragmatist, is it even legal to try and manipulate the market?
We don't actually have competition laws in Ghana. I think
that's where I was going.
Trying to work out
one funny one, but it's really very, I think it's...
Okay. So I'd want to end by saying the price needs to come down. You cannot say anything about it. But the unfortunate thing, you see, and that is the biggest unfortunate thing in this country, you see the Russian roulette. When the people are in power, where they use coupons, they don't see this reality. When they go into a position where the coupons doesn't come, they see this reality. Until we take away those coupons, so that everyone sees the reality uniformly, we are not solving this problem.
A strong point.
Okay, thank you very much. My guests that you have been enjoying very much on the show this morning, and they are presently Dr. Theo Echampong. He is economist and political risk analyst. Senor Kwesi Hosi is CEO, Ghana Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors. And Dr. Kwame Sapong-Asiedu, he is pharmacist and fellow, Ghana Center for Democratic Development, CDD, Ghana. And I know you are hooked because this happens to us literally every week. On the Twitter trends, literally every week, we break it, and we are always leading on the Ghana trends. And I just looked at it. We are leading as always.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Now, I need to bring you guys into the discussion about accidents, but I have to take a quick break. I understand that we may have to speak to somebody from Goil shortly, but let's take a break. We'll be right back. Thank you very much. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And as we do here always, we put Ghana first. I've got your messages on the fuel issue. We'll go quickly also to deal with accident. We've got a special guest who will spend some 15 minutes to help us on how to avoid more accidents as we enter the Christmas. Now, let's speak to Kwame Osei Prempeh, who is the director, the MD, managing director of the Goil. That is the Ghana Oil Company Limited. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Thank you very much.
Great. So we understand that you have a quick intervention to clarify matters where we have misunderstood them. Please, let's hear you.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. Indeed, I tuned in and heard some comments being made, and I think it's proper to put things in the right perspective. First and foremost, we've said several times that government never forced our hands to reduce our prices. We are in a deregulated environment, and Goil has always fixed our prices independently. Kwesi is there. He knows that almost all OMCs look at Goil when we fix our prices. They follow us. Most of them undercut us, so they always use Goil as a yardstick. But we also do a lot. Goil, let me say that, has never priced according to the market forces. If it had been so, the fuel at the pump now will be more than 7 cedis or more, even more. But the pricing policy I met in Goil when I took over 2.5 years ago is to always look at where Goil will make a good margin and also make sure that the public is also much affected, because when Goil fixes the price, all the others follow. In fact, in the previous window, pricing window, Goil went to 6.99. We decided to reduce it by 14 pesos. 14 pesos. I reduced by 14 pesos. At the close of the window, we found that we had benefited a lot. When we reduced by 14 pesos, came to 6.85, our volumes went up in a very unprecedented manner. Indeed, total fuels for about diesel, our super run 95, and others, we sold a total of 83 million liters, which has never happened. So we believe that it was good for us to look at the prices. So in this window, we decided to look at our prices. Of course, it coincided with the driver's strike and other things. But we assessed everything. We have our BDC. We sat down with the BDC and looked at everything and said that, what if you go this way, we can make profit. Let me say that within that week, Total has reduced their price from 6.90 to 6.80, 10 pesos reduction. But Total, it was no issue.
Yes. So tell us, what do you want the public to think? You have been a politician, member of parliament. You've been deputy attorney general. The drivers, we knew they were going to go on strike. You never came out to announce that you are reducing your prices. Then they go on the strike. Then they are called into the Jubilee House. They come out to tell us that this is the outcome of the meeting. And they actually quote that you are going to reduce by about 15 pesos. And then we hear you announce that you have reduced by 15 pesos.
And, let me say that it was no coincidence. Indeed, I'll be lying if I say that nobody spoke to me. Every responsible government in such a situation will speak to important stakeholders. The chief of staff called me about that. The drivers were on strike, and Goil, what could you do to help? I told her that in the previous window, we went down by 14 pesos. This one we have not decided yet. In fact, I myself, I traveled outside and I had just come in. So we were going to meet on Tuesday to look at our pricing. So we met at our BDC level, Go Energy. And after looking at the X-Ref, everything, we decided that if we come down to 6.70, Goil will still make our margin. Our margins will come down, but never it will not be bad for us. So if in the previous window you had gone down by 14 pesos, and this window we decided that we are going down only 1 peso extra down to make it 15 pesos. It shouldn't be so. I called the chief of staff and told her that we have looked at everything. We can go down by 15 pesos. That is, and I believe that we did that based on the market forces. You see, somebody said that, well, you have to make profit for our shareholders and others. Yes, that is true. But if you price and your volumes don't go up, what do you get? Your profits will go down. But if we come down and our volumes boom, like it did in the previous window, we benefited from it and we will make more money for our...
Yes. While this raises questions of unfair competition, the question people are asking is, if you are able to do this and stay in good business, then it means that there has always been something wrong with petroleum pricing, product pricing in the country. What do you say about that?
It is wrong. It is wrong. We always, as I said, as I said earlier, it's a deregulated market. In fact, even now, as Goil is selling at 6.70, some OMCs are selling at 6.2. Some are selling at 6.3. They do. We look at if the previous market we reduced by 14 pesos. And as I said earlier, if we had gone by the market forces, we would be selling fuel beyond 7 cities by now in this country.
Which OMCs are selling at 6.2, 6.3?
Oh, I will not mention them here, but if you like, after this your program, go around and see that some of them are selling at 6.2, 6.3. I check on Thursday. I don't know the situation as of today, but Kosi will tell you that OMC, some sell 50% below Goil, some sell 70% below Goil. And last month when I went to Wale, on the way, I found a station selling 1 CD 10 pesos below Goil price. And the question that you've been asking is, how are they, if you all buy from the same market, how are they able to come so low?
So in other words, you have not done well at all. If some can reduce to 6.2 and 3, and you are doing 6.7, then it means you can do better.
I mean, that's too simplistic. Because we know, and everybody in the industry knows that there are some things untoward going on. Those who smuggle goods in, we know that products for export, they are given tax-free. That's products going to Burkina, Mali, and others. They are without taxes. Most of them, when they leave the loading point, they don't get to their destinations. They are directing.
Okay.
Everybody, including national security, knows that there are so many smuggled goods coming in this country.
So I think the substantive question, because we don't have time, the substantive question is, how is this going to last? And how is this a solution to the strike?
We have done what if the market, the world price, this goes down further, we reduce our prices. If the dollar stabilizes, it also affects us. We do our prices. We do. If it becomes unbearable for us, we will go up.
So clearly, this is not a permanent solution. This is actually not a solution.
I mean, when has the fuel price of one window ever been a solution?
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So the drivers understand. That's why they say, remove some of the taxes. That's what they want to deal with. And that's the permanent way, isn't it?
I mean, who to remove? God to remove or who to remove?
Because you are also in government. I'm
not in government. I am the head of one OMC. And we do what we can to help the Ghanaian transporter.
It took the chief of staff to call you, and for you to also go and sit down with your OMC to take the decision.
No, you are misconstruing
the chief of staff cannot call other oil companies.
Look, the chief of staff can call any company, but also remember that Goil is the biggest in the industry, and government is right if it wants to do consultation to call Goil. Secondly, government has 78% stake in Goil, and therefore, if they want to understand anything, they will ask us what is going on. And apart from NPA, Goil is the only stream government can ask.
All right.
Explanation, and we explained that there is a situation, and the last window we did this, but what I want to say is that one government did not pressurize us or twisted our hands to change our price. In the previous window, we did 14 pesos. In this window, Total did 10 pesos, we did 15 pesos. We are in a competitive environment.
All right.
We compete, so we do what will let us make profit for our shareholders.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kwame Osei-Prempeh. Thank you very much, Kwame Osei-Prempeh.
It is wrong.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kwame Osei-Prempeh is the MD for Goil. That's former Deputy Attorney General and Minister for Justice and Member of Parliament for Insuta, Kwamam Beposo in the Ashanti region. So can I take just a minute each from Tio and Kwame and then get my yes, Senor Osi took leave of us. He's attending a very important meeting, but he's able to join us on phone. Can you give us a minute of some reaction about the portion that you commented about on their statement, where they suggested they are not out to make profit?
Yeah, I have to be honest with you. Being Goil MD any day is a very difficult role. You always have to juggle between politics and actual business, and commerce. And it's obvious. But my good friend, Osei himself, he's doing a great job at it. The thing here is the optics, and then sometimes the statements they share. I would advise that. I'm not sure that was intended to suggest that their objective is not to make profit. It sends a very wrong signal to the market, especially the fact that it is a listed entity. One of the challenges that everybody will identify with all that happened is that we're about 7 to 8 days into a window, meaning we are done about half of a whole window, and then we see a sudden change in price, which is allowed. All right, and it is within their right to always do that. The communication and management of it is one of the challenges they had. I don't think that it should have been the chief of staff's place to actually have that kind of conversation with the transported. All right?
Why not? Why not? Government has a stake. Government is a shareholder. But Senor, in a second, Senor, he speaks about other OMCs that are doing 6.2, 6.3. They are doing 6.7.
As I told you in studio, it is a fact that people selling below 6.7. So it is not so abnormal to see Goil want to sell 6.7. The issue here is a question. Is it the case that the other market is overpricing? Is the MPA not effectively monitoring the prices?
Okay.
If so, then there's something we all have. And another thing, government has every reason to talk to Goil, but there are other people that government talks to. I sit on the government advisory board, the AOMC sits on it, and so there's room for absolute cooperation and coordination.
All right. Thank you very much, Senor Osi. Yes, Dr. Theo Champong?
I think it was an interesting intervention. What is clearly coming out from what the CEO says is that this is a temporary move. And I would have been worried if they were sustaining this a number of periods going forward. So clearly, they cannot continue doing this because that would keep distorting the market. But I think an important point to raise here is that we actually must have some public stakeholder forum on petroleum product pricing and the impact of that on different facets of the Ghanaian society to fully exhaust the issues. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your time.